Hi everyone, how's it going? Back again with another video. Today I'm going to show you how to paint yellow using an airbrush, and one of the many ways to paint yellow. Really, there's a few ways you can do it. We're going to show one way in this video. The way we're going to do it in this video is we're going to do build up from a Mournfang brown all the way to our yellow contrast. Now, before I actually start painting, there's an option that you can pick here if you are going to follow this, and that's your yellow. So here's two yellows. We've got Bad Moon's yellow and we've got Imperial Fists yellow. Now you can see a difference in the colour. You've certainly got a colder yellow on this side and you've got a warmer yellow on this side. Now you can change these yellows depending on your requirement. Now obviously I'm going to try and do this as a Imperial Fist, and the more standard Imperial Fist armour, which tends to be a lot warmer. However, if you want to do it as a colder yellow, change the yellow. You could also do Iyanden yellow, I think it is, the contrast. Whatever one you've got, whichever one you like the colour of, it stays the same. Now, in this video, we're going to be using Mournfang brown, but you can also use pinks, you can use reds as that mid-tone. So, without further ado, let's get started. First step is going to be Mournfang brown. This is thinned down in an airbrush just with some water. Again, we don't need this to be perfect consistency. If it goes on a bit speckly, if it goes on a bit too wet, that's fine. We are literally using this as a base colour for the yellow. So we're just going to make sure that we get a solid coverage all over. This is a little bit wet, so I'll probably have to do a second coat. But again, that's completely fine. Just let the first bit dry, and then we'll go over again. If you wanted to try and do this with a brush, you would struggle. You would struggle in certain parts, but you'd have to use spray cans. So you'd have to get a brown spray and then a white spray, and then you could go over with a contrast with a brush. That would get you somewhat close, not perfect. Again, you'd lack the sort of control with the highlights, which we're going to do on the next step. So yeah, I'm going to do another couple of layers of this, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. This is where we stand after the first step of the Mournfang brown. Took 2 layers just to get a solid coat. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in with white. Now for this, I'm going to use a ink, but if you had I don't know, any white that's not an ink, acrylic paint, it's totally fine. If you have ink, we'll use ink. I just like it. It runs nicer for an airbrush. Now, one thing you're going to notice with painting, not necessarily even white, but certainly light colours, is their tendency to splatter and be speckly on the model. Now, that's nothing to do with you. That's usually to do with the fact that it's a light paint and the pigments in the paint are a lot bigger than on darker colours. So, to combat this, we're going to do a step after this. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick our highlights, and we're not going to do anything crazy. We're just going to do basically a, not centerfold as such, but we're going to go a bit further than a centerfold. So all we're going to do is start spraying this on, and you can start to see it is a bit speckly. You can start to see on the shoulder pads just around here, but that's fine, because what we're going to do is we're going to push this paint back with a step after this. But for now, we're just going to focus on getting our highlights. So you can start to see where we're sort of focusing on the highlights, you know, sort of front of the legs, and we're allowing it to go into the brown towards the edges. Sort of places that are going to hit the, well, flat areas that are going to hit the most light, we're just going to do full, just clean the end of the airbrush, get a dry paint on there. So certainly on top of the hands, the head, the chest, top of the shoulders, top of the backpack, we'll leave the sort of back side of the shoulders darker, and we want to build this up really nice so that you can start to see what it looks like. So I'm going to basically repeat this but on the back. So we'll focus on sort of the feet, top of the backpack, and that's about it, because there's not really too much on the back. A lot of the inside of the legs is very dark. It's going to have shadow there, so the little bit of overspray we get will suffice for the rest of the model. So I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. This is what we're looking like after that step. There's a few bits I could probably do a bit more on fingers and whatnot, but they are shadow in the shadow area, so we'll keep them there. What we're going to do is we're going to add some brown. Now that looks brown, and it probably has got a little bit left in, but not enough to affect the white. So we're not going to go crazy here. We're just going to grab a brush, and we're just going to grab a little bit of brown. We just want to tint a little bit more. There we go. Now this isn't going to change the end look, because we're sort of dealing with the same colours. Let's get it spraying through. There we go. Now we've got some brown spraying through. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pick where our middle of our transitions are. Let me just make sure that this is flowing nicely. This will reduce that speckling, and it's going to add a sort of filter in the middle. So certainly on the leg, I'm just going to put a little bit on there. Smooth out those transitions a little bit, just to make them less speckly. But because we have the white, the brown in there now, it stops everything being so speckly, which is the whole point. So we're just going to hit the top of those shoulders, back of the head just a little bit, just where the sort of white meets the brown on the edges. If you're not confident doing this method, this step even, don't worry about it. Skip it. The speckling isn't that noticeable, but to anyone out here that's a perfectionist, it might drive you nuts. So yeah, there we go. A few little bits done, just to clean up a little bit of those steps. On to the final step. We're using Imperial Fists Yellow in the airbrush. It's not watered down. The only part of watering is a damp brush. That's it. Now this is where the magic happens with how easy it is to paint yellow. You spend a little bit of time on the first steps to make this step easy. Like, painting the yellow is the easiest bit. Now with an airbrush, especially when you're doing an all over color, people find to go a bit crazy and treat it like, you know, a paint bucket on Microsoft Paint. Take your time, treat the airbrush like a normal brush. So for instance, on this, on the arm here, on the hand, we're gonna take our time. Build the colour up really nice. We're gonna do a little bit at a time, move on to the shoulder pad again. We're not just going all over, you know, we're gonna treat each section like we would with a brush. And I will just apologise on that leg there. There's a horrible mark on the shin, which I didn't notice. But it is what it is. So we're just building this colour up now all over the model. And when we apply it over the brown, it turns it to more like an orangey colour. Still yellow, but certainly a lot warmer. And then when you get those transitions between the white and where we apply the yellow to the white, it starts to bring everything together. So I'm probably going to do 2 layers of this in total. And you'll notice as you apply a second layer, that yellow becomes a lot more warmer. The first layer can be a little bit cold, even so we're using a warmer paint. You can start to see on the top how much lighter it is compared to sort of the torso, because I've only done 1 layer over the top. And again, because you play an airbrush as well, it's pretty much drying. By the time you've done 1 layer, the next layer is ready to instantly go again. The back looks a little bit weird because obviously there's a lot of brown, but for instance the magazines or whatever are brown, they're going to be silver. Other parts of the backpack will be silver. The pipes will, you know, be a different colour. So it looks weird, but don't judge it now. Judge it when you've applied, you know, the rest of the colours onto the model. So we're almost done. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pause. I'm going to let the model dry fully, see if it needs another coat or not, and then we'll be close to being done. And there we have it. Model completed. Well, the yellow completed. the hardest part done. Yeah, so if this is something that you want to try, and obviously, yes, to do it like this, it requires an airbrush, but you can buy a cheap airbrush and a compressor set for less than £100. In terms of that, it sounds like a lot of money, but in some cases it's a box of models, so sacrifice a box of models, buy an airbrush. If Imperial Fists are your your dream army, but you're afraid to paint yellow, or you feel like you can't achieve yellow, or what you want to achieve with it, then maybe this is something to take a look at. Hope you found it helpful. If you have any more tutorials that you would like to see, whether it be Space Marines, I know I use Space Marines a lot. It's just easy, nice big models for the camera to see. But if you want to see other tutorials for other models, please let me know. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe and like and leave any comments. So yeah, thank you very much, guys.